Have you ever wondered why someone keeps occupying your mind? Whether it's an ex, a crush, or even someone you barely know, it feels as though they've set up a permanent residence in your thoughts. No eviction notice, no explanation, just constant mental cameos you never signed up for. It turns out, this is not just some random glitch in your brain's operating system. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, believed that when someone lingers in your thoughts, it's not a coincidence. In fact, it might be one of the biggest clues to understanding yourself. So, what's really going on here? Is it love, obsession, or maybe something deeper that even you aren't aware of? Brace yourself, because we're about to dive into Jung's theories on the shadow, anima and animus, projection, and the mysterious force of synchronicity. By the end, you might just see that person in a whole new light. Or maybe you'll realize it's not even about them at all. Jung's theories. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." He believed the human mind was like a labyrinth, with hidden passageways leading to treasures of self-discovery. But most of us never dare to venture into those dark corners. Instead, we stay busy with daily life, while our unconscious mind quietly works overtime. When someone constantly appears in your thoughts, Jung believed it's not just a coincidence. It's a wake-up call from the unconscious. Picture your mind as an iceberg. The tip above the water is everything you're aware of: thoughts, feelings, and memories. But the massive chunk beneath the surface, that's your unconscious. And that's where the real action happens. That's where repressed desires, unresolved emotions, and hidden fears are hanging out, waiting. So when someone keeps resurfacing in your mind, it's often because they've triggered something buried deep in your unconscious. Think about it. Maybe they said something that resonated with an old memory. Or perhaps they embody something you wish you could be. According to Jung, these aren't accidents. They're signals. But don't worry, this doesn't mean you're doomed to be haunted by them forever. It just means it's time to pay attention to what your mind is trying to tell you. The shadow theory: meet your shadow. No, it's not the shadow you see on the sidewalk, but the psychological part of you that you'd rather not acknowledge. Jung describes the shadow as everything about yourself that you've repressed, denied, or ignored because it doesn't fit with your ideal self-image. And here's where it gets interesting. The people who keep showing up in your thoughts might actually be your shadow in disguise. Let's say you admire someone's confidence, but deep down you struggle with self-doubt. Or maybe you're drawn to their creativity because you've neglected your own creative side. On the other hand, someone might annoy you endlessly because they embody traits you refuse to admit you have, like arrogance or impulsiveness. Jung believed that our relationships with others often reflect our relationship with ourselves. When someone occupies your thoughts, they might represent a piece of your shadow crying out for attention. It's like your unconscious is saying, "Hey, remember me? We need to talk." Realizing this can be a turning point. Instead of obsessing over why you're thinking about them, you can start asking, what part of me are they reflecting? And how can I grow from this? The shadow isn't something to fear. It's something to explore, because as Jung wisely said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Anima and Animus next. Let's dive into two fascinating concepts in Jung's theory: anima and animus. These archetypes represent the feminine and masculine aspects of our psyche, and they play a huge role in how we relate to others. The anima is the inner feminine in men, while the animus is the inner masculine in women. But don't get too caught up in gender. These are symbolic representations that everyone has, regardless of identity. So, how does this relate to someone constantly occupying your thoughts? According to Jung, when you fixate on someone, it's because they resonate with your anima or animus. Perhaps they align with your subconscious ideal of a partner, or they bring out qualities in you that you aren't fully aware of. For example, you might be drawn to their emotional depth because it mirrors something you're missing in your own life. But here's the kicker. It's not just about attraction. Sometimes, the anima or animus can create illusions. You might project an idealized image onto them, seeing them not as they truly are, but as your unconscious wants them to be. And this can lead to some pretty confusing emotions. The theory of projection. This is where things get really interesting. Jung believed that much of what we feel about others has little to do with them, and everything to do with us. This phenomenon is called projection. Think of it like a mental movie theater, where you project your thoughts, desires, and fears onto another person, as if they're the main character in your film. Let's break it down. If you admire someone for their ambition, that might actually be a quality you wish you had more of, or a quality you already possess but haven't fully acknowledged. Or perhaps you dislike someone because they remind you of something you fear about yourself, like being overly critical or emotionally distant. Whatever it is, your unconscious is using them as a screen to project parts of your psyche that need attention. Now, here's the tricky part. Because projection feels so real, it's easy to mistake these feelings for facts. You might think they're amazing or they're terrible without realizing you're actually talking about yourself. Jung saw this as a major opportunity for growth. When you catch yourself obsessing over someone, good or bad, stop and ask yourself, what am I really seeing here? What does this say about me? By owning your projections, you can reclaim those parts of yourself and stop giving others so much power over your thoughts. Synchronicity. Have you ever thought about someone only for them to text you moments later? Or perhaps you've been thinking about them for weeks. Then you bump into them in the most unexpected place. It's like the universe is winking at you or playing tricks. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, or meaningful coincidences. And he believed it wasn't random. Jung defines synchronicity as events that are connected, not by cause and effect, but by meaning. In other words, when your thoughts and external events align in a way that feels significant, it's a sign that something deeper is at work. So, the next time a synchronistic event happens, don't just shrug it off as coincidence. Take it as a nudge from the universe or your unconscious to dig deeper.